Hello everyone and welcome to another Taco Tuesday. Today actually is the 5th Taco Tuesday. I'm thankful for all of you joining us here today. I hope you guys had an amazing weekend. Early shout outs going out to Rosarin, Yanlan, and Katrin. And I hope that you guys are having an amazing day. What are you guys drinking right now? Those of you who know in the chat room, I am drinking my homemade iced latte. Oh, that's good. Nice and bitter. I love it. So, hope you, right in the room what you guys are drinking. Some of you guys are drinking nothing. Some of you drinking soup. Bubble tea, coffee, what you drinking? All right, so just want to remind everyone is, if you have any questions, you can write them down right now. Write down all your questions right now. Anytime during the entire talk, something reminds you of something you really want to ask, just ask them right away. It is open the entire time. So I hope that you guys... the moment it comes to your mind, just write it down, and then we'll make sure we'll put your questions in the queue. This is the Taco Tuesday, and I hope you guys enjoyed everything that's been going on in your life. I've been enjoying mine, and today we're going to talk about the story of Mark, okay? Saint Mark. And he's a second book in the New Testament, right? The Gospel of Mark. So it's very interesting because when we look at this, there's really not much to talk about Mark, but his story is actually really, really amazing. So everyone, take a sip of your drinks, just kind of relax, eat your dinners, whatever it is, and we're going to get into the story of Mark. All right. So, Mark, who is this guy, Mark? Mark is a very unknown, famous figure. As weird as that sounds, he's unknown, but he's very, very famous. So the thing you have to know is he was someone in the Bible, he was in his teens at the time of Jesus, okay? He was really, really young, in his teens, and he didn't really listen to Jesus or follow him around. It's because he was a teenager, right? He was someone really, really young, and most people that age are not going to just follow people around like this, right? So, question is this. What's his connection? What's his connection to the history? Like, what's his connection to Jesus and such, right? Well, his connection actually comes from his mom. And because of his mom, the bigger connection is his house. So, mom was pretty wealthy, okay? Wealthy mom, she had like a 2-story house. And the reason why this house is so important, there are many things going on in this house that Mark had no choice but to see Jesus all the time. Jesus was the one who always stayed at Mark's house. Right? He slept over the house. He ate at the house. The disciples came, gathered in the house. It was that place. It was like their headquarters whenever Jesus was near Jerusalem. Okay? So stayed at his house. He preached in the house. He healed in the house. He ate in the house. He talked in the house. Everything was there. Even all the apostles came to that house too. So it's a very, very special house. Actually, that house was so well known that before Jesus was captured in the Garden of Gethsemane, they actually went to Mark's house first to check it out, to see if he was there. Now, you know what other famous thing happened at Mark's house? Pentecost, meaning it's the day of the Holy Spirit. Remember where they're all inside of a house? That was in Mark's house. And in Mark's house, the Holy Spirit came on them, including Mark. So Mark was even there to receive the Holy Spirit. So that's supposed to be like one of these monumental times in Christianity. And they said that from that point on, after receiving the Holy Spirit as a teen, what happened? Mark, he completely changed. The thing interesting about Mark is his first name is John, right? It's John Mark. So he was always referred to as John until he received the Holy Spirit, and then he became Mark. And after receiving the Holy Spirit, he became very fiery and very, strong. And you guys got to understand why they called him Mark, because you know what the meaning of Mark is? Like, this would be like the new Marvel superhero. It actually means the hammer, right? So he'd be like Thor's partner, right? That's what Mark actually means. It means hammer. Like, that's what he became like after receiving the Holy Spirit, going out and preaching and doing crazy stuff. Now, after he receives the Holy Spirit, guess what he gets to do? He gets to go with Apostle Paul on his first trip around the world, right? Preaching the gospel. So here he is with one of the most famous people in all the New Testament time. He travels with them in his first journey, not just with Paul, but also his cousin Barnabas, right? So he had all these famous people. And something else that you guys should know is he was also related to Peter. Like, Peter married a relative of his father's. So even Peter was related to him, right? So he went off with Paul and his cousin, and they started traveling and making miracles, and all these things happened. Now, something actually happened midway through the first trip. And Mark decided this wasn't for him, and he just skipped out in the middle. Like, you know how it is. Like, you're a little bit young. It might not be what you thought it was going to be. You thought it'd be a little bit more, you would go into nice hotels, right? And you'd be driving by cars or whatever it is, but instead you're walking all the time, and you're always, like, asking people to let you stay over and sleep there, right? It just wasn't something for Mark. And Mark skipped out in the middle of the trip. Now, how bad was this? It actually made Paul not too happy. And they said that from this, like when he skipped out in the middle, Paul was like not too fond of him. That later, Barnabas, which is Mark's cousin, and Paul got into a fight because of Mark, right? Because Mark skipped out, and Paul kind of didn't like him anymore, so he didn't want him to go on the next trip. So that's how kind of bad the situation was. Eventually, what happens to him is he becomes the interpreter for Peter. Okay, as crazy as that sounds. He follows Peter around, and because he spoke fluent Greek, and Peter didn't speak fluent Greek, when Peter went to preach in the Greek areas, Mark would be the interpreter for Peter. And actually, he was known as Peter's interpreter. Not interpreter as in, trying to tell people what he's really trying to say, but literally interpreting from Hebrew to Greek. Finally, what eventually happens to Mark? Mark actually becomes the first of the apostles or of the disciples to preach to Africa. And they say that, and some of the sources say that he actually preached to millions of people. And on top of that, he set up the first school, like the first, not the first, but the largest school in all of Alexandria or in the Christian world. And that school was set up to go against the philosophies of the Egyptians and whatnot. And he was so famous in Egypt that all the pagans were trying to find a way to eventually kill him, and eventually they killed him, right? Basically, they took a rope, they put one around his neck, one around his leg, and they dragged him around the entire city, and they said he was just all bloodied, and then he died. Like, pretty gross, right? But here he is. He becomes someone who writes the second gospel, right? He was one of the 70 people chosen by Jesus as one of the key disciples, the 70 disciples, and he wrote the book of Mark. So how amazing is this? So if you think about this, a lot of this we look at, we're like, well, it doesn't say anything about this in the Bible. Yeah, you have to go to other books to find out what Mark actually did, and he lived quite an amazing life. That's why he's kind of like one of those unknown, famous people in the Bible. Story has so much to glean from. There's just so much to take out of it that actually I came up with like 8 different points, but of course we only have 20 minutes, and I've already used half of it now. So we're going to get into this, and we're going to talk about 3 major things that we can learn from Mark in his life. Okay? Life lessons from the story of Mark, what we just learned. It's very interesting because we didn't really talk much about him. We only know I only picked out several key things about his life. But we're going to figure out, what is it about Mark, the hammer, right, that we can learn from in our life? So let's take a look at the first one. The first one is very interesting, is he wasn't there by choice, right? He wasn't there by choice at all, right? It was like Jesus and his apostles were at his house. He didn't really follow Jesus. He didn't really listen to Jesus. He was kind of just there when the Holy Spirit came, right? He was the person, when you think about it, he was just too young to go out and follow. He was too young to go out and do all those things all the time. He was just someone, if you think about it, he was in the right place at the right time. And it was all because of his mom, right? It's because of his mom. Mom's rich, had a nice house, and Jesus always came over, right? So we're like going, okay, what does that mean? Now, in life, this is very, very similar to us too, is sometimes we are put into situations in life where we feel like we totally don't belong there. We're like, what am I doing here, right? And the thing we have to realize is sometimes there are purposes and reasons beyond your knowledge, right? And beyond what you can fathom at that moment. If you look at Mark, no one had any idea. He was this young teenager. No one knew what he would become. But he was just this teenage guy, and the only reason they let him stay, because it's his house, right? If you look at Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 11, the first verse, it says, he's made everything beautiful in its time. So there's something in its time, right? He put eternity in their hearts, except no one can find out the work that God does from beginning to end, right? Which means we only see what's happening in front of us right now. That's all we really know. Right? That's what we're like going, oh, why is this kid here? And we kind of think to ourselves, oh, why am I here? Do I really have to be here? What's going to happen here? Man, they're talking about stuff I don't even understand. And Jesus talks about this really high, deep spiritual things. And Mark is like, what the heck is he talking about? Right? And he probably wasn't even that interested at that time. But we also have to realize there are sometimes these things happen. You might think that you don't belong. Mark was a kid. You might be young. You might not understand anything that's going on. And you might even think to yourself, like, what the heck can I contribute to this situation? I'm just there, like, observing. But the thing you have to understand is, a lot of times in our life, these things come around, and it's not about whether you're qualified or not. And it's not about whether you can contribute or not. It is opportunity. It's what it is. Sometimes we're looking for opportunities, but these opportunities are right in front of our face and we have no idea what it has to do with our future, but you have to take these opportunities. Don't run away from them. Don't say I shouldn't be here. Don't say why am I here? Don't say what can I really do here? What you have to do is look at the situation you're in and you have to learn from that opportunity. Opportunities don't come along very often, and think about how crazy this opportunity was. That he was at the right place at the right time. He just watched and listened and learned, and he received the Holy Spirit, as crazy as that sounds, right? If you look at Ephesians chapter 5, right? If you look at this, it says, be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity. You can't look at it as a situation of why I'm here. You have to look at it as an opportunity. Why? You might be gaining something just being there at the right place at the right time. The time of opportunity is a time for you to learn. You may not understand it right now, but as you stay and stick around and you learn more and more, you will realize that that opportunity was there for you for a reason. You're not sure right now. You don't understand. You don't know the reason behind it either right now. But there is something. Their opportunity is something for your future. And that's why you have to, what does it say? Make the most of every single opportunity that you have. And that's what Mark did. Let's go to the second one. Second point is this. It's not the end of the world. Okay? This is the attitude we need to have. It's not the end of the world attitude. It's not the end, right? You know, he had a once in a lifetime chance. Now you got to think about this. Once in a lifetime. Because in our minds it's like, whoa, he was with Paul. And Paul is this once in a lifetime chance. And he's like, oh my gosh, this is so different than what I expected, right? So when you think about this, when you look at Paul and when you look at Peter, how big were these people to Mark? Well, Mark was a teenager, and you have these older married men. And what was it? More than anything else, is learning from the people above him, learning from the people below him, above him, right? So Mark may not have learned from Jesus, but he had the next best thing, which was Peter and Paul, and even his cousin Barnabas. Right? This is why he was able to learn from their experience. He's learned from their skills. He was able to preach all the way in Africa, set up an entire school, set up the first church, and became like the first patriarch of Africa. Right? Because he learned from those who came before him. You have to learn as much as you can from the people before you. That's something really, really important. Like if you look at Proverbs chapter 11, verse 14, there's something that's very true. For lack of guidance, a nation falls, but victory is won through many advisors, right? Advisors are not people below or people on the same level. Advisors are people who are smarter, who are wiser. And the reason why I say learn from your elders, when I'm saying learn from your elders, you gotta think about this. Have you ever thought of why God allows people to live that long, where you have really, really old people living with really, really young people? You know what I mean? It's like, you're like, God, why don't you make them die a little bit earlier? Why do you have these old people hanging out with these young people, right? It's like you're living at the same time. They can't keep up. Why? You have to realize God allows the people who are older to live long enough for what reason? And we have to think about that too. But the reason these elders we have, the older people in our lives, is to learn from. They've been through everything that we've been through. And what it allows us to do is it allows us to grow to a higher level. How so? Well, if you learn from people who have prior experience, right, what happens? Then you will not repeat the same mistake. And you will do one level higher than the last generation. But you know, when you're young, what do you think about your parents? Like, Mom, leave me alone. No, leave me alone. No, don't tell me what to do, right? Oh, grandpa, don't tell me what to do. Or you're like, these older people like, oh, why do you keep telling me what to do? I want to live my own life. And the answer is true, you want to live your own life, but you don't want to relive the other person's life, right? You don't want to relive the life the other generation did. You actually want to do better than that generation. And this is one of the problems we have when it comes to younger generations. We don't want to learn from the older generations. So what happens is we end up making the same mistakes and we don't grow that much better than the last generation. We have to learn from our elders, right? You have to find those people around you, those mentors, those elders, those people of experience, the people who have similar, like better life experiences than you, and learn from them. That's one of the greatest things we can do. This is why these people are there. That's why people like me are here, right? It would be weird if I was 6 years old. I don't know if you guys would be listening to me if I was 6, right? Like, and then you play with toys and your life gets better, right? And you guys would be like going like, what? What is this kid talking about? Like, and then if you're really sad, you can have orange juice because orange juice makes me happy. And you'd be like, what kind of a talk is this? And then no one would be watching it. Well, actually, you know what? Probably other 6-year-olds would be watching it, and it'd probably have more viewership because right now, kids are like in the high viewership right now with YouTube and stuff. But either way, I'm talking about you guys right now, right? We have to learn from the ones that came before us, right? Last point, last but not least, I kind of touched on it a little bit, is it's not the end of the world, right? I'm going to talk about this a little bit more deeper. Now, if you think about what Mark went through, he had the once-in-a-lifetime chance, which means Paul was considered one of the greatest in the entire New Testament, and he had a chance to travel with him, to experience life like at the fullest when it came to faith. Like you're thinking like, man, this is so amazing. You like, imagine you in your job, or like, for instance, imagine you're someone who's into like technology, and then you get a chance to work with like the CEO of Apple or the CEO of like Microsoft or whatever, and you get to learn from them. And you're like, oh my goodness, once in a lifetime, I gotta make the most of this. But then what does he do? In the middle, he quits. He quits like, it's too hard. I can't stand this. This is not the thing for me, right? And it even came to the point that Paul didn't even like him. Right? Remember what I told you? Even Barnabas, Mark's cousin, and Paul thought about it and they split because of Mark, right? That's in Acts chapter 15, right? Acts chapter 15, 30, look what it says. Paul didn't think it was wise to take Mark because he had deserted them, right? And the next sentence, they had such a sharp disagreement that they parted company. So Barnabas went with Mark, and then Paul went with another guy named Silas, and they split up because of Mark. That's how angry Paul was. It was enough that he split up with Barnabas. Barnabas like, no, come on, take my cousin. Like, no, I don't think it's wise. He left us in the middle. We're not going to take him on the second trip. And they split up. So can you imagine that? Like that person who's like one of the greatest in his fields says to you, no, we tried him. No good. Get rid of him. I don't want to work with this guy anymore. Like, can you imagine that? Someone the top of your profession. You get to work under them and then they don't even want to work with you. What's the mindset? The mindset is, oh, I missed the once-in-a-lifetime chance. I screwed up and now I have nothing left. Oh, I failed and I just want to crawl in a hole and set myself on fire or whatever it is. And you kind of have this end-of-the-world thought, right? It's like, oh, my life is over. My life sucks. Why is life like this? Because you like squandered this great opportunity, right? But you got to think about this. What happened next? Mark actually found his calling. He found a place where he wanted to be. He wanted to be with Peter. And he became Peter's interpreter. And he learned so much from Peter. He wrote everything that Peter said, right? And this is how he was able to become one of the people that was writing one of the 4 Gospels. And that's why they call him Mark the Evangelist. He wrote one of the 4 Gospels because he hung out and he stayed with Peter everywhere he went. Everywhere. Wrote everything down. And he wrote the book of Mark, the Gospel of Mark. So you think to yourself like, whoa. So he just gave up a great opportunity, but then he got another great opportunity. Oh, so lucky. No, you have to think, what's my point here? In your mind, once in a lifetime is only in your mind. It's only in your mind. Because if you think about it, every moment and every time is once in a lifetime, if you really think about it, right? Every single thing you do is once in a lifetime. Because, for instance, I get opportunity now or 10 years ago, I'm actually a different person. I'm a much different person, 10 years less experience, 10 years less knowledge, 10 years less skill. And even if I got that opportunity 10 years ago, it's different than getting that same opportunity right now. We're under the assumption that I have to be in this position because of that person. And the answer is no, because then now I'm trying to live that person's life, right? I'm thinking that because that person is so great, I need to live his life. So I have to be with him. And the answer is you don't. Because it's your life. It's all in your head. This once in a lifetime stuff is all in your head, right? Because think about it. What if it's not your path? It was actually smart for Mark to leave in the middle. Because there's no point of you continuing with it if you know this is not it. It's better for you to find the right path for yourself rather than continue on something you know it is not your path. What am I trying to tell you guys is, no two people's paths are the same. And you can't really assume that you know 100% that your path is with that person. You don't. He tried it out. He went out with Paul. He lived it, and he's like, no, that's not it. And he left halfway through. And what's even more amazing is later on, when Paul heard about what Mark was doing, when he became stronger and more spiritual and more faithful, is Paul began to accept Mark again. And in his letters, you'll see that he talks about Mark like, oh, send my greetings to him. Oh, make sure you take Mark because Mark is someone who helps in the ministry. Yeah, eventually everything came back full circle because he went to the place he should have been in. If it doesn't work, it doesn't mean it's the end. Don't be upset. Don't be upset at yourself or other people because something didn't work out, whether it's their fault or yours, whatever it is. You have to understand that that may not even be the path you're supposed to be on, right? And we have to understand, you have to take out of your mind the once-in-a-lifetime, end-of-the-world attitude, right? Make every effort. We talk about getting every opportunity. That's great. Do it the right way. But more than anything else, right? We need to be those people that can become truly amazing, not because we took someone else's path, but we took our own path, right? And sometimes we know something is not right. Haven't you guys ever thought about, like, there's people who get a lot of money, but they know it's not the right path for them, and they're unhappy in their jobs, right? Some people like someone, so they go and work at the same place as someone they like, and they know it's not the right thing to do, but they do it because they like them, not because they like the job. Right? And we have to think to ourselves is, yeah, if you look at Mark's life too, he was with Paul. Like everyone would die to be with Paul, just to be on the travels with Paul. But he cut halfway through. But he eventually found his path, the one that was his. And eventually when he grew, and he grew and he learned from his elder Peter, and eventually he was able to go on his own. And he went to Africa himself, right? And he was able to, like I said, preach the gospel to millions. And he was so popular, right? And he was creating such a disturbance in Egypt that the pagans killed him. That's how much of an impact he was having in Egypt, right? What do we say also? Set up a school. He wrote the Gospel of Mark. He did so many things. And there's more things that he did that I'm not even telling you guys. But he ended up becoming such an amazing person. And I hope that you guys too will realize this is something that is also like our lives. And there's these small things that we can learn about ourselves so that we can find the right path, right? Go on the right path that we know is the best for us, right? Not a path that, oh, I like that person, or I think that person is great, I want to be with them, okay? So I hope that really helps you guys out with the story of Mark today. For those of you who are here for the first time, I want to let you know we have 899 subscribers. We need one more for 900 subscribers, which is going to be a big milestone for us. And I hope that if you are here for the first time, go on to our YouTube channel, Espresso with Sky. We have all the Taco Tuesdays and like 20 other videos we have in the past you can watch. We have Bubble Talks on there too and other videos. Hit subscribe. Just obliterate the subscribe button and just hit that notification bell so that you'll always get all the notifications whenever we go live or whenever we upload a new video. Those of you who are new on the YouTube channel, just click Just click subscribe and notification bell, and we'll make sure you get all the information needed. Also, for those of you who want to support us in our ministry here, go ahead and click the link for Patreon, and you can support us on Patreon. And also, this Saturday, 1 p.m., we have our small group Bible lessons, a lot deeper, and you're going to hang out with people from around the world, like from where? We have people from Hong Kong, from Mongolia, from Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and the Philippines, right? So you're going to meet people from everywhere. And we're going to have lots of different teachers from different countries too. So if you guys want, go ahead and fill in that form, and we'll send you the emails whenever we have our studies. Cool. And what does that mean right now? It means that it's time for question and answer. I hope you guys started writing down your questions as much as possible. I'm going to have a sip of my drink, and we're going to start the question and answer in about 3 seconds. We're going to start off first with Jenny in KL. Jenny in KL, how do I find the right path for myself? I feel like every path leads to a dead end. Okay, cool. So remember, dead end paths, what does that mean? It means that it's not the path for you, right? Dead end paths, it means like, hey, you know what? We're always trying new things to figure out where's the right path for me. But, you know, like none of us here are in that position where it's like, God, what's the right path? And he's like, doctor. And you're like, thank you. And then you go and become a doctor. It never works like that. I don't know anyone who's ever been through that. People usually have some type of inspiration of what field they want to be in, and they try different things, right? And as they try different things, they find something that they're very inspired by, or something they see a vision in and say, oh, I really want to do this, right? And when people have that, right? When people find those great paths that fit them, what happens is no one really knows their future, and that's why you should take the path that will lead you to your next step. Because honestly, even if you get a job right now, you don't start at the top, you start at the bottom. And you know what? Every job almost starts the same at the bottom. It really does, right? And that's why you want to try them and figure out, is this right or wrong, right? And you have to think about that to yourself. Like, this is one of the problems I see is people don't think about whether this is the right path or not. They just try to hold on to it because like, oh no, I need a job, so I'm just gonna hold on to this. But you really have to think about if it's the right one. The reason it hits a dead end and you don't really like it, you're bored of it, or it doesn't really fulfill you, and you don't really try that hard, and it hits a dead end because you're like, oh, I don't really want to do this, right? But you should probably know before it hits a dead end that this is really not the right place for you, right? We are searching every day for the right path. For those of you who have faith, you got to pray about it, got to get inspiration from God, inspiration of what's the right path to take. Ask God to open doors. Ask God to close doors is just as important too, okay? Thanks, Jenny in KL. Let's go next. Next question is Steve in Singapore. How do I know which elders around me to learn from? Okay, good question. How do I know which elders, right? There's tons of elders everywhere, and I'm going to tell you one thing is, I know that there are some good elders and not so good elders, but I guarantee you there's always something to learn from. No matter how long, if you live for 40 years, 50 years, maybe 30 to 50, 60, 70, the more you experience, you're going to have some words of wisdom that's going to come out. You're going to have, these people are going to have at least one tidbit. I'm not telling you to go to these elders and take everything, right? It's like, yeah, man, and you should like be late for work every week because it makes no difference. You know, like don't listen to that kind of stuff, right? But you should be able to discern those things. But there's these tidbits of information or experiences and realizations they have, and these are the things we're constantly learning from the generations that came before us, right? And if you're at your job, ask people who've been at the job longer than you. If you're at church, ask people who've been at church longer than you, people who are like the teachers or lecturers, or people who know the Bible well, or ask the people who are before you. Everyone has something that they've understood or realized throughout their life. Not everything, but like I said, it's good to find a really, really good mentor or someone who's an elder that can teach you a lot of things. Of course, it's really, really good, but I'm telling you, you can learn from almost anyone. Right? It's just that sometimes you need to discern a little bit more when there's people that maybe might not have as much. But Steve, definitely you can learn something from everyone. You definitely can, right? So I would say that I would always keep my ears open to good advice, right? So then that means it's closed to bad advice. Okay. All right, let's go over to Queen in PJ. You said we need to grab opportunities immediately, but what if we have no ability to take it? Okay, so what I'm talking about is in the situation of Mark was already in the situation, right? He was in the situation already. Like, for instance, it would be hard to say like, oh, there's an opening for a doctor and I've never been to medical school. I can't really take that opportunity, right? I just can't, because I don't even have a doctor's degree, right? So here it says, what if we have no ability to take it, right? Mark actually, in his situation, he didn't have any ability to do anything. He was a kid. He didn't want to hear Jesus. He didn't want to hear any of those things. He didn't want to follow them either. He just didn't. But what was his opportunity was getting close to the apostles, learning, getting close to knowing them better. And him was just listening. On just looking at them, understanding, and they were teaching. And he would, even though they're teaching someone else, you know, Mark would just sit there, listen, even though they're teaching someone else. They're not even teaching me. Right? I'm not even teaching Mark, right? So when we need to grab opportunities immediately, but what if you have no ability to take it? Well, some situations you're able to just be there. Take the opportunity, or if they're willing to give you the chance, you just gotta learn. You just gotta learn as much as you can. Because if you get an opportunity, it might be one of the ways you learn quickly, which is on the job. I know someone who got a job, and the job description was different than the actual job. And all of a sudden, this person had to learn something completely different in the next 6 months. Right? But they took the opportunity and they looked on YouTube and they started learning themselves how to do it. They started learning themselves, right? And it became an opportunity for them to learn something new, right? So if you don't have the ability, some things are impossible. Like, for instance, like I said, if there's an opening for a doctor and you didn't go to medical school, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna work. But there are these situations where you meet the right people, right? You meet good people, you meet people of opportunity, right? And at those times, sometimes it's good just to listen, just to be there, right? Just to soak in what they're saying. And this is something that I hope that a lot of people really get their minds around, is opening their ears to good advice, right? Cool. Thank you, Queen, for that wonderful question. Let's go to the next question. Next question is Yiling in Kuala Lumpur. Yiling asks, if there are two different opportunities that come at the same time, do you choose only one of them or prioritize which to take first? Example, to grow your faith versus career advancement. Okay, well, if I look at those two examples, you can actually do both of them at the same time because they're not the same career, right? Now, if you were thinking two opportunities, meaning become a pastor and go to pastoring school, like to go to seminary, Bible college, and then advancing my career, you're basically don't have enough time to do both, right? Advancing your career is a career you have in this job, but faith is something that is completely different, that goes on, that's not at the same time. For instance, if I had to, if there was actually if this was reality, choose career advancement or growing your faith, that means everyone who has a job couldn't grow their faith. But that doesn't make sense, right? Do you think just because you have a job, your faith can't grow? No, that doesn't make sense, right? Only people that work for their church can grow in faith. That doesn't make sense either, right? Growing your faith is not something that is the same as your work, right? Because the difference between faith and work is a job that you go to. Faith is your lifestyle. It's the way you live. It's who you are. It's completely different, right? But if faith was a job, it'd be different. Like, all right, guys, I got to clock in. I got to pray for 4 hours today. And then after that, I'm going to clock in and read the Bible for 1 hour and a half. And then I'll clock in again and I'm going to sing for four hours. Like, if it was an actual job, then it would be something like, okay, we can't do both at the same time. But we have to realize that faith and career, they're completely different. Because career is something you do. Faith is something, it's who you are, right? It's the life you live. It's the way you think. It's the way you are, right? And you can have faith while you work. Absolutely, right? You can have faith while you work. Faith and work do not go against each other. So you can actually do both at the same time. If you want to work, go work and grow your faith. You can do both at the same time. The only time it'd be different is if you were actually thinking about going like a full-time staff at church or full-time work career advancement, and that would be a little bit different, okay? I hope that answers your question, Elaine. Let's go to Grace in the Philippines. Grace in the Philippines is asking, how do you know that you are walking the right path for you? And that's a good question too. So how would you know it's the right path for you? Number one is you really need to try it, right? And trying means not like, I'll give you an example. Let's just pretend that this is a piece of the newest sushi in the world, okay? So imagine it's like a big piece of fish with rice on it, and you're like, oh, you should taste it, see how it tastes. And you go like this. And you take a bit of the corner off and you eat it. Now, my question is, have you really experienced that sushi? And the answer is no. You gotta eat the sushi. You gotta eat the whole thing to experience and say, oh, this is good. Oh, this is bad, right? In the same way, when you look at the path that you're going into right now, you do need to you gotta fully immerse yourself into it, right? You gotta experience it. Like put your all into it and see if you really, really enjoy it or not, right? Is it something that you enjoy, right? Is it something that is the right path for you? Right? And after you begin to fully experience it, you say, oh, this is kind of interesting. Oh, I really like this. And it could be a stepping stone to another direction you go eventually later. It doesn't mean you have to just go that direction, but it could be a stepping stone to another direction that goes a little bit later, right? So it is something that, for those of you who have faith, it is something that you need to pray a lot about. Because especially even for myself, when it comes to faith, a lot of times I have to let go of my own thinking or what I want, right? And if I let go of that, then I allow God to lead me in the direction that He sees, because He sees more than I do, right? So when it comes to people of faith especially, we are looking for guidance and we're looking to be led by God, right? And I'm not saying that don't just sit there and pray like, oh, please, pray, but also talk to people too, right? Talk to people in the industry, see what they like, see the pros and cons, right? And see if that path is the right one for you, right? So finding the right path is not as simple as work for 40 days, and after the 40 days, you'll get inspiration and pow, it's your path, right? And then a big sign in the cloud says, it's your path, right? It's not gonna be like that, like not even close. And it's something that's between you and God. Or for those of you who don't have faith, it's actually between you and yourself and you and your mind, you and your conscience, if this is something that you can really see yourself doing for a long time or not, okay? Is the last question? Last question all the way, it's Paula. Paula Jamolin. Is it Hamolin or Jamolin? I'm not sure which one it is, but Paula, in the Philippines, how do you deal with regret from realizing about the opportunities you missed? And the answer is, there is no regret. You can't regret. You know why? Because regret only comes as if you really, really know. That's when you have true regret, right? Like you might be sad and like, oh, I wish I just did that. Oh, that was a great opportunity. But honestly, when you're sitting there with two options in front of you, do you really know which one's right? Do you really know it? Right? Haven't you ever had this where you're like two options and then one is like this and then you're like, oh, I'll take this one, and then it doesn't work out, but you see someone else in that path and it works, and you're like, oh, that was the path. But the answer is no, because what if it's them, not the path? It fits them. They have the skill. They have the different, they have that temper and they have that demeanor that's perfect for that job, that it works out for them. They had some fortune or luck. Just because it works for someone else doesn't mean it works out for you, right? Honestly, we really don't know. We really don't. And that's why every time we come in front of two paths, the thing you have to understand is you can't really regret, because the only time you regret is if you knew that that was the path that would give you success, but yet you took this one instead, but you knew it 100%. Then you could regret, like, oh, I knew it, but I didn't do it. Oh, I'm so stupid. But a lot of times we kind of put ourselves in that God position of what? It's like, oh, I knew it. I knew it was that one. But honestly, if there's only two paths, you got a 50-50 chance. And you know what? Even the path you choose, you're not really 100%. You're like, yeah, I think I'll do this one. Maybe, yeah, okay, I'll try it. Oh, and they're like, no, and then, oh, because it's better over there. No. Even if it works for them, there's no guarantee it's going to work for you. There's no guarantee at all. 100% there's none, right? There's no guarantee of anything, right? And this is why we go through life, and a lot of times the regrets we have are not worth it. Why? Because we really have no idea whether they work or not. We just don't. Right? Even for me, like, hey, everyone, thank you so much. We hit 902 subscribers, so I'm super happy we're over 900. But what I'm going to, why did I bring that? Oh, yeah, because even for me, I'm just like, man, should we try YouTube? It's like, let's just do it, man. Let's just do it. And we're like, all right. And then it's like, let's do it live twice a week. I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do it live twice a week. Right? But we don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if it's the right path or not. Right? I could have taken another job. I could have done something else instead. But I can't regret over it because I have no idea which one's right. And even if I took the other path, I would have no idea if it would have worked out for me anyways. Right? So we have to kind of like let ourselves go in that area because no one knew. No one did. And even when your friends say to you, I told you you should have taken that path. You know what? They didn't know either. They didn't. No one knows except God. Okay? No one. So the best we can do is research as much as we can, make a decision, and then if it doesn't work out, you learn from it and you move on to the next path. Right? That's the most reasonable thing to do at that time. Okay? So I hope that helps everyone out. Thank you so much, everyone, for your support. We're now at 902 subscribers, on our way to 1,000. I can't wait till we get there. Hope you guys had a wonderful time talking about the story of Mark, and thank you so much for the questions. And we will see you again either on Thursday at the Bubble Talk, on Saturday at the Bible lessons at 1 p.m., or we'll see you next Tuesday for Taco Tuesday 6. All right, everyone, have a wonderful day. Enjoy your drinks, and we'll see you guys again. Bye-bye.
We believe in the same God, but we are on different levels.